remarked one time in one of his articles that he had found that talking with witnesses that a number of times they would pause and say, it seemed like this thing wasn't just a craft. I felt like it had a consciousness, like I was in the presence of some big whale or something. Uh-huh. And they and then some of your experiences who claim to have been on board a craft. I know one guy was telling me that he leaned up against a wall in a craft, and it spoke to him, and then he started having a conversation with the wall, and so what if it is something like what we're talking about here? That might make sense to some things that previously didn't quite seem to make sense. It's kind of intriguing.
And I'm assuming the conversation was telepathic that this guy told you about. Was it oral?
I believe it was oral.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, some race is way, way ahead of us. Like we're sitting there, right, taking compounds of different metals and and formulating them, to create jet aircraft, whatever, Maybe they have found a way to grow organic matter, to do what they needed to do. And that's what's interesting. The scientists only gave me a few minutes. I got a feeling I might be able to get them on the show. And if I do, that would be so awesome. But it was surprising when I really didn't even ask that question. They brought that up, that they, I mentioned about, some of the things you've been showing, Michael, that the one guy in Puyallup has been doing. And, and they came back and said that the object would have to be organic. Didn't want to elaborate much more into it, but they're in the physics department of the UW, so I think they know a lot more than I would know.
Well, we shouldn't let Brent get out of here without relaying to us maybe his UFO sighting himself.
Oh, yeah, we need that.
I'd love to be able to get into, because him being an expert, basically witness, I mean, if there was a witness that I would like to interview that has seen anything anomalous, it would be Brent Raynes for sure. So, what have you got there, Brent?
That I have seen personally? Oh, me. Well, you may be disappointed, but I have seen lights at a distance. I always wanted to see one up, the regular disc with the dome and maybe the landing legs, and I could maybe go up and, touch it. I wouldn't want to be burned like Steve Michalek and some of the others, but, I'd like to get a good eyeful, and I don't know that I'd want to be hauled aboard and have an anal probe, but, I'd pass on that, but I will tell you this, that back around 1977, I was visiting these people who lived in a cabin out in the woods up in Manchester, Maine, and by a little stream there, and it was very quiet and peaceful, but they claimed that they had, some of the family had seen this Bigfoot type thing, and sometimes lights, and sometimes paranormal occurrences going on inside the cabin. And so I went there and I started just hanging out with them. And at the time I had read a book on how to do psychometry. And so I would, while I was there for hours at a time, seeing if anything would happen, I thought, well, let's kind of play with this a little. So this lady, she would give me these objects, and I would try to give readings, and she said I was being very accurate. And so then I even expanded a little, like I did at another place, where instead of just holding an object, I just sat there and tried to come up with impressions about things, and that seemed to work pretty well for me too. So one night we were sitting around a table, and this woman was telling me that she was seeing in the middle of the table, it looked like the head of a gypsy woman. It was just her psychic impression. And I was saying, well, if we go out of here at about, I think it was 11:15, and look off in this direction, we'll see a UFO. And I'm even thinking to myself, now this will be a good one, Brent. This will be a good one, because this will prove it to you now. Because these people were impressed with my readings, and I thought, well, let's just see what we got here. And so I walked out there with two of the people, and we came out to a clearing, through the woods to a field, and this bright light came up from behind these trees, and it was a white light, and it was kind of pulsing, and it came up a little ways and then stopped, and then it came up a little further and stopped. And it wasn't like a regular light where you turn it on and it's instantly, a beam of light. It actually was slowly, jerkily moving up higher and higher until it struck these clouds overhead. There was a cloud cover. After a while, it even started raining. And then slowly, after it hit the clouds, then it would slowly retract back to the ground. And then we saw it off in another direction, and we saw it several times that night. And I thought, well, that was different. I guess when I, said see a UFO, I guess I should have been more specific. But it looked anomalous to me, And then after that, I started hearing people telling about seeing beams of light from UFOs where they would shoot down and stop, wouldn't go all the way to the ground. I thought, well, damn, that's what I saw, So I thought maybe that was a lesson for me. But
that is fascinating. So it's possible that this light might have been from a craft, not necessarily the craft itself. Is that what you're thinking?
Well, it was maybe somehow connected. It looked very strange to me, the way it was behaving. And I know that a year or two before, two of these people, one of them was there with me at the time seeing these rays of light, had also seen a ball of light rise up from behind some trees. And I remember they said there was like some shafts of light in the distance at that time too. So maybe that was related. Why I couldn't get why they wouldn't show themselves as a ball of light or a disc or something, but anyway.
Yeah. What color was the light that you saw? Do you remember?
It was just a white light.
All right. And if you put an eraser of a pencil out at arm's length, if you were holding a pencil and you were looking at the eraser, would this object, this light, have been larger or smaller than an eraser at arm's length?
Well, I'm holding my ink pen out in front of me right now.
Yeah.
And I would say it was about the width at arm's length of the shaft of the pen.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So either it was very, very large and close, or it was either larger and far away. That's quite a setting right there.
Yeah, whatever the source was, it was, below the tree line there. So it was at a distance, but it was how it slowly just rose up and would stop, and it had this flickering kind of jerky motion, and then it would go up a little further, and then finally, once it reached the cloud, then it would slowly start to descend back, go back behind the trees, and then noticed it off in another completely opposite direction, as I recall. And I remember writing to Dr. Berthold Schwartz, who I still have the letter I wrote to him about this back at the time. He's a psychiatrist who studied UFOs and the paranormal.
Yes.
Back at that time. And we corresponded probably a little over 3 decades, about 35, 36 years, and about UFOs and things. I met him twice, once at his home when he was living in Montclair, New Jersey, and then he actually came to Maine one time to investigate a case that I had called him about. And as a psychiatrist, I was always interested in getting his, input and impressions, and he knew Keel also. In fact, he had worked some with Keel on some cases. So, anything I had that seemed a little unusual or off the wall or, investigated, I'd keep him posted, and he was always very quick to write back and, let me know his thoughts and so on about these things.
Wow.
So
now, hey, we are almost out of time. Now, hey, would you like to come back on maybe in a couple of weeks and we can continue on for another hour or so about this?
Wow. Yeah, sure. That sounds like we've just kind of, there's a lot of things we could still discuss.
Oh, yeah. Well, that'd be cool. What do you think, Michael?
Oh, yeah. When you have a guy like Brent who has the history that he has with basically some of the pillars of the community here in ufology, you got to pick your brain as much as we possibly can. So that would be wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. As I was going to say, I've got and Beyond UFOs, it was put out by the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Extraordinary Experiences. I have a chapter in it that's about 49 pages. It's a 785-page volume, so
wow. I'm
not the only contributor, but it's a lot of different papers, and it's covering a lot of the high strangeness, very thought-provoking areas of the phenomena that a lot of times get neglected, and the subtitle of it is The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence. So, there's and some of the authors here are PhD people, Dr. Rudy Shield, John Climo, so I thought I'd mention that. It should be on. Well, it is on Amazon now. It just came out.
Now, why don't you got
my copy today?
Now, why don't you let people know how they can find you on the internet, your books, where they can purchase them, and why don't you go ahead and take the next 3-4 minutes and tell everybody how they can do all that?
All right, thank you. It's apmagazine.info, and or they can Google Alternate Perceptions. It's online. That's the name of the online magazine, and it comes out once a month, always around the first of the month. And I have a column in it called Reality Checking, and then we have other regular features like Encounters with the Unknown and Classic Mysteries, and we have different contributors periodically, and usually 2, maybe 3 interviews ourselves in each issue. They may be print interviews, they may be audio. And then my friend Dr. Greg Little, he usually has 1 or 2 articles. He has a pretty regular column called Archaeotrek that deals with ancient sites many times right here in North America that you can go to, Indian mound sites and such. And he's even written an encyclopedia on Native American Indian mounds and earthworks. And so anyway, we try to present a range of things that'd be of interest to readers. If they're not interested in UFOs, maybe they're interested in various ancient mysteries, shamanism, or some form of paranormal phenomena that we try to cover, although we do probably cover mostly UFOs, but that's my fault.
There's nothing wrong with that. I will tell you this, Brent, the UFO thing is really taken back hold again. The ghost hunting type of thing has kind of been dropping, where the people are, well, if I have a guest on, talking about ghosts, I don't have anywhere near the listenership. But if I have somebody on and we're talking about aliens or UFOs, I mean, that's where I get all the listeners. We're talking 60, 80,000 listeners to the show. And this tells you that people, especially what's going on with Trump administration, mentioning that, well, he's going to create a space force and directs the Pentagon to do it. All that has really intrigued people more into UFOs more than ever.
Well, that's good. I hope that the